Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for Fantastic Four issue 45. And I overall enjoyed this issue. It really kind of tied up most of the loose ends that we got from the Reckoning War, even though Johnny is still acting like, I get Johnny's whole thing about, like, I'm permanently on fire. But, like, he just really keeps going into asshole mode. And I think it's mainly to put us into a different kind of status quo kind of thing where everybody's kind of like split up and the Reckoning War has kind of like really kind of changed some dynamics. So we'll kind of see how this kind of works out. So we start off and we're pretty much back at the Baxter building. They figured out that like the security system says that he's on the roof. That Ben's on the roof of the Baxter building. And of course, Alicia, Joe and Nikki pop up and like, hey, there you are. Good hug and everything. And talking about like how it's a long story and everything that he's got to tell him. And that Alicia knows that he's not telling him something. So we pretty much get back and we're at planet T-37X. Everything's going nuts. Galactus is trying to eat shit. We're trying to figure out what's going on. Let's see. They're pretty much trying to give enough time for the people in the core to kind of like do what they need to do and like evacuate most of the rest of the people to Ego and to kind of like put a hold on what Galactus is kind of doing. The Unparalleled are pretty much doing those efforts to pretty much evacuate the Watchers and everything, as Uatu is pretty much getting like screwed over by all the shit that he's taken in. Sky's pretty much like, hey, listen, you kind of want to leave. But Fury's like, listen, I gotta stay with my buddy here and make sure everything kind of works out. He's like, I want to. Let's fucking get out of here. And you see that Fury's kind of like, listen, back the fuck off with his gun. But, like, it's not really a tense standoff. It looks more tense than it is. Sky's just like, we're trying to help as many people as possible. And she's not being, like, an asshole or anything either. And then we see that Uatu's pretty much, like, got everything from the Watchers. It's like, ah, shit, I see all that. The lies, the what-ifs, all this kind of stuff. And, of course, he's not really handling it all well. And then they pretty much get about sucked into the Apex. So we switch out and we see what pretty much has happened with the Ultimate Nullifier. That it pretty much left Reed alive, but deleted everything that, like, his Watcher kind of self did. So he did lose something in exchange for using the Ultimate Nullifier, but the thing is, it pretty much took out Wrath, but his armor is still doing shit. Because, like, the weapon was designed by the Watchers to be used by a Watcher, and he was becoming that, and it kind of, like, worked out and all that kind of stuff. Doom's like, I knew that was going to happen. Johnny's like, I'm going to take your ass out, Doom. And of course the Cormorant's like, hey, stop that shit. And he's like, we don't have time for this because this thing's going to blow the fuck up. It's like, yes, Johnny. I understand you're pissed at him, but figure out better times for this shit. So they're trying to figure out how to get out of here because if it detonates, it's going to, like, detonate the, like, whole multiverse kind of shit. Well, if it detonates within the apex of all realities, it'd be like, we're going to destroy the whole multiverse. Whereas this is like, no, this would, like, if we take it out of the apex, it'll just detonate in our universe. So, of course, the Surfer pretty much fixes his board and is like, I know what to do. Johnny, help my ass. And it's like, all right, we're taking this trash. Sue's pretty much making sure that she's got a field to protect all the rest of them there. So they decide to pretty much throw the thing in to have Galactus eat it in his destruction form. And I love it. It's like, hold on, do we just use the big guy as a garbage disposal? That's about the size of it, Jen. Only a being as powerful as the as Guardian Destroyer and Galactus combined could ever hope to contain such a power. And then, like, Silver Surfer and Johnny are thanked by pretty much the three big kind of entities. I do kind of like how the Griever is pretty much put up in there in the entity kind of list. And then the Watchers are like, ah, shit, what's going to go on with our world? And then the Citadel dude's pretty much like, you can't tell anymore. And we learn that they've gone cosmically blind. That something has happened to remove their sight. It's like, yeah, after what Uatu's kind of seen, we kind of see this new kind of status quo as like their planet pretty much is blowing up, but then we see Uatu's face, and then he becomes like big El Gigante, giant motherfucker, and he's the one and only Watcher now. So I get it because the Watchers didn't handle a lot of situations well as a people, but like centralizing him into one kind of dude, that presents certain problems as well. Even though I trust Uatu, he could be used or controlled into certain bad things if things go on. However, we don't know what his powers. Granted, he'd get a certain kind of power set and skill increase as well as we see this stuff going on. And he talks about how he sees everything and how the Luminous were responsible for a lot of this shit. So he decides to pretty much do not about interfering or bringing reckoning, but to take action to rectify. And then we get this really kind of cool thing where they pretty much go to the Barrens, and he unlocks the other like 9/10 of the universe. So it's like, hey, that's a pretty cool thing to kind of like expand and give kind of more possibilities to like cosmic exploration. Also gives it like not just the cosmic one, but also the Fantastic Four kind of looking and exploring new kind of things, because it's like, okay, we've explored the multiverse, how about we expand upon the main universe? And we're like, all right, and he undid all the damage. Borderlands are okay. Jack pops back up and he's alive now because of this. It's like, all right. The TVA is like, all right, this is the best possible timeline. Everything's kind of worked out. Because it's like, all right, She-Hulk, you do feel bad about that one planet getting screwed over. However, this has seen the birth of like 8 quadrillion worlds, so yeah, you can feel guilty that that one planet got destroyed, but throughout these other kind of actions, a greater kind of cosmic thing has been done. It's funny. And then she's like, I don't know how to process that. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of a hard thing to process. Like, now we just got to get the resurrection of Galactus and we're done. It's like, okay. And then we see that Galactus is like reborn. The Asgardian destroyer is like doing its own kind of thing. And then the 3 main big entities are like, you're wondering what this kind of Galactus is. And then the Silver Surfer's like, what do you hunger for? And he hungers for knowledge. So it's kind of cool that this is a knowledge kind of based one. And he's like, I'm going to go through the Borderlands. I kind of need a herald. And Silver Surfer's like, not a herald. And there's like maybe a guide. And Silver Surfer's like, a companion. It's like, so be it. And then they're going off to explore. So that's a kind of cool thing. I'd like to see kind of like check-ins with that kind of stuff. So on and so forth. And then they pretty much take the Asgardian destroyer and put it like back in its vault. Like, Uatu's able to do that. He's like putting everything back in its proper places. Johnny's like, hey, now you should be able to fix me, right? It's like, all that knowledge was kind of deleted. It's like, Johnny's like, rawr! And it's like, I get it, but that would be the only kind of logical conclusion. If Reed is not dead, he would have to either be he'd have to be a Watcher. And since he's not a Watcher, he probably doesn't have that information. Like, if you randomly got downloaded like a lot of information on shit and then it got like deleted, good luck trying to recall that shit. And then Johnny's like, I'm not going home with any of you. It's like, alright, fucking what the hell ever. I get Johnny's predicament is a pissing kind of thing. Like, he's pissed off about it. I get that. But everybody's kind of been working on it, and then one thing after another keeps lending on, so sucks that it's been put on the back burner, but yet you have helped out in this kind of state. Then, of course, guys like, hey, listen, our overseer's been working on cures for cosmic mutations. Maybe he can help us. Fine, I'm going to go with you guys. And Sue's like, damn, watch it. What the fuck? And this guy's like, we'll let you know if there's any change in your brother's condition. And Ben just wants to go back to his wife and kids as everything's kind of like going their separate ways kind of stuff. Same with Doom and the Cormorant. And he's like, I'll remember you. He's like, I'm going to go where I'm most needed. And the Cormorant decides to stay and like guard the Maracan crystal, and like Emnu, Ruin, and Rapture are now kind of stuck in there. And we've also got the rest of the Shi'ar kind of like protecting it as well. So we're like, alright, that works out. And they're pretty much back, and they're pretty much going to like get rid of the Forever Gate after, of course, they get Val and Franklin back in. They're in the thought space, and Franklin decides to use the thought space to repower himself, asking if that's okay. And the parents are like, yeah, we love you. And I'm like, okay. Why wasn't that brought up before? I mean, I like that that's a thing to kind of get Franklin back to a status kind of quo, because I was wondering what they were going to be doing, and honestly, this is the kind of most logical way to get him back to that. It's just like, why didn't we think of this before? Then he comes back, we know that his hair is now black permanently because of what he did in the thought space. However, if he's got the same powers he's got, he could, like, change his hair color probably willy-nilly because of his god kind of stuff. But they then talk about how the Forever Gate is too dangerous, so they're pretty much going to dismantle it. And Val's like, damn it, everybody's partying, and I'm going to be down here dismantling this thing. Then we see, like, Iron Man, not Captain America, Captain Marvel, rest of some groups pretty much being like, hey, you missed it. We did everything. We blew up a Badoon's Death Star ship and all that. And everyone's like, yeah, that sounds fun. And then they're seeing that Uatu pretty much rebuilds the moon and makes it as a kind of watcher on the wall kind of thing. This is his watchtower for Nick Fury. And is leaving the Ultimate Nullifier with him. And says that he can't think of another place for that. That he's going to be the man on the wall, the unseen, and humanity's shield. As we see his shield logo and everything, I'm like, hey, that's pretty cool. Even though Fury is in a similar place that he's been before, it is a new kind of thing to kind of see for that. He's more been gifted it by Uatu rather than forced as any kind of punishment. We end off at Latveria, where we see that Victorious was pretty much protecting Latveria. Doom's like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, I was triumphant. And the thing is, he was able to get a lot of stuff from his encounter with the Cormorant, the Reckoning, and the Hidden Technology, and that he's going to build his own Forever Gate. That also kind of looks more kind of magical as well. I mean, granted, he's probably using kind of magic to show this kind of thing that he's going to be doing with it, but I think he'd be doing all different kinds of stuff with it and how different his Forever Gate would be. So it's like, yeah, Reed's like, this is too dangerous, and the dude's like, yeah, I'm gonna do this shit myself. It's like, all right. So we got a lot of status quo changes. We got a lot of resolutions for what was going on for the Reckoning War, and I'm like, all right, cool. And it worked out pretty well, even though I wasn't reading the main Reckoning War comic stuff going on. I got enough from it from what was going on in Fantastic Four, and overall, I think that most of the resolutions worked out pretty well. Doom making his own Forever Gate, that just completely makes sense. Ben being more standoffish with Reed makes sense, especially with what was going on. Johnny's is the only one that's like, oh my god, I understand he's a hothead, but he's like perpetually pissed off with this shit. And I'm like, I understand it to an extent. I'm like, dude, there are perfectly reasonable explanations of what is going on for why they have such an issue of trying to cure you for what's going on. And honestly, Spire would be the best place to do it, but you don't have to be a dickhole about it to your family, man. So hopefully he cools off, gets better, comes back, is like, alright, and doesn't like draw that shit out. But I enjoyed this. I like the art. It worked out pretty well. It's kind of crazy to see Uatu kind of like crack out through like that planet and become just big El Gigante Uatu, and like we see, I do like Galactus hungering for knowledge and just be like, yeah, I'm gonna roll out here with Silver Surfer, Uatu doing the moon and all that. There's a lot of stuff that happened in here, but it didn't feel overstuffed, if that makes sense. Like sometimes you get something that's like, you got all these characters and all these things that you got to work through and wrap up, but this did a good job of that in my opinion. Except for like the whole stuff with Johnny, and even then they did wrap it up enough to put him into he's going to Spire and all that, but that's mainly Johnny's attitude and what he's been doing character wise that's annoyed me rather than the execution of what was kind of going on. Yeah, so those are my opinions on the issue. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.